You're welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Progressive Mind Show. We are glad to be coming your way. My name is Sena, aka Alinko. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's going to be very, very interesting. I know we're getting some feedback, so we're going to do something about it. Just give us 1 second. It is November 18, 2020. It's Wednesday, 6 p.m. So we are here to serve you. Again, this is Sena, aka Alinko, with the Progressive Mind Show. I encourage you to share the feed if you just joined us on Facebook. We are also live on YouTube. It is the Progressive Mind Show this evening. We are happy and we are glad that finally we have come to the point where we can openly discuss the international herb. It has that title and it has that, I would say, crown as an international herb because all over the world, I mean, every herb is everywhere, right? But the international herb has its own reputation, good or bad. So this evening, we want to be able to talk about it. We will also be talking specifically about the stigma, the African stigma, which has been in existence for a long time. So with your help, we might be able to get into this somewhat so we can make an impact as we always strive for. Before that, though, we will take the Captain Mike segment. When we come back, we would want to talk about this very, very important thing. So stay tuned. I know my brother is in the studio. He's going to take it from here. The weather has been good to us, my brother. I mean, Chicago standard. So I know you have some stuff for us. Captain Mike, take it from here.
Go right about normal for the values as far as our temperatures. Winds are strong out of the south, 20 gusts up to 25. So hold on to your hats. 45 degrees right now, mostly cloudy skies. For the rest of tonight, we're looking at a low about 43 degrees. Tomorrow, we're going to have about 60, 40. It's going to be a nice day. Windy, still south winds. Friday, decent day, mostly cloudy. Saturday, we're going to get into a little bit of rain later in the day. Sunday and Monday, Sunday, the rain Saturday is going to be late. Monday, we're going to have mostly clear skies. Tuesday is going to be, got to keep an eye on that because it's going to rain, but it may have some mixed precipitation, maybe a little bit of sleet, maybe some freezing rain, depending on how far the cold wind moves a little north, a little south. So it's going to be really, really dicey. So keep your eyes on that. And now we get into some soccer scores. First, we'll talk about Jamaica defeating Saudi Arabia. Jamaica had Ethiopia defeated Nigeria 3-0. Sorry, Sudan defeated Ghana 1-0. Egypt, Togo 1. Mali 2. Nambia 1. Tanzania defeated. All right, no, they added a tie with Tunisia. Nigeria and Sierra Leone also fought to a tie. The Democratic Republic of Congo 1. Angola 0. Morocco 2. Central African Republic 0. Benin and Lesotho we fought to a 0-0 tie, same with Madagascar and Ivory Coast. Okay, let's say Rwanda and Cape Verde 0-0. Ecuador defeated Colombia. Venezuela and Chile fought to a tie. Paraguay 2, Bolivia 2. And my team here, Brazil 2, Uruguay 0, and Argentina 2, Peru 0. So a lot of soccer going on there and not too much sports going on here, except for the NBA draft tonight. In our health and fitness, we're going to talk about fire safety, something that's very important, where we have, first we want to talk about fire is fast. You can go from a small fire in your house to a huge blaze in about 30 seconds. Fire is hot, duh, obviously, but we want to talk about you can get up to 600 degrees at your eye level. And that's why we want to crawl, because the temperatures are lower to the floor. So when you're exiting your house, try to get low as you can. Fire is dark. It creates black smoke and create complete darkness. Fire is deadly. Most of that is from toxic smoke. Well, the majority of deaths happen because people inhale the fumes from the toxic smoke, not really from burns or fire. How do we prevent death and injuries from fires in our homes? Well, glad you asked. 1, install smoke alarms. Make sure you test them monthly, change the batteries at least once a year. Ensure each room has at least 2 escape paths, whether it be window or door. If you're in a condo or a higher apartment, make sure you try to have an escape ladder or some kind of escape rope so you can get out safely. Establish an emergency communication plan with you and your family. Who to contact after there's a fire to let everyone know everyone is okay. practice your escape at least twice a year. Know what everyone has to go, and choose a meeting place somewhere that's safe. And practice feeling around your way in the home in complete darkness or with your eyes closed, so you know how to get out safely. Have a fire extinguisher. Most people say have it in your kitchen, but I would say also, just me personally, I've never seen it, but have it in your bedroom too. So if you leave the room to try to rescue someone or go somewhere else in the house, you can actually put out some flames if you have to. Teach your children fire safety. Make sure they know where to go, what to do in case there's a fire. Now with that, Sina, we're going to go back to you, and sorry about that loss, brother.
No worries. We won the first one, actually. It's a 2-leg game, and I think we won the first one 2-0. So we wanted to be benevolent. So we give them that, that win, so that, we can be nice. We're nice people. Ghanaians are nice people.
That's true.
Yeah, we are hoping. I think right now we are second on the table. We are hoping to qualify. Ghana has always been big in soccer. We beat the United States. We beat you all like so many times. So we can. Yeah, we're cool like that. We're cool like that. We're cold. Ghana Black Stars. I've been looking forward to great things. We went to the World Cup. I think 2010 we did very well, but I think the team hasn't been doing so well as we have been used to. But we're hoping that they will come back. And I know the U.S. team is doing very well too. The United States soccer team is doing very well too. So we're hoping that we can clash on the world stage one day. But brother, thank you so much for always coming through for us. We are glad. We shall be seeing you next week.
See you next week. Same time, same channel.
Absolutely. God bless, bro. All right. So that was Captain Mike with this segment. We want to take a short break. When we come back, this great guests are here to help us understand, or actually deal with the stigma of the International Hub. The International Hub is the topic for today. As you are watching us, please help share the feed so your friends and ours can benefit off of this discussion. We are live on Facebook. It's the Progressive Minds. Please make sure you are sharing. I know a couple of people have joined already. Please share it right now. You can watch it on YouTube as well. Whilst you are there, help share the feed. We shall be right back after this short break. Okay, we are right back, as I said, and my guests are ready. We have the lady first, Dr. JEMIMA KANKAM. Dr. JEMIMA KANKAM has so many years, several years in psychiatry. She is a board-certified psychiatrist, distinguished life fellow of the American Psychiatric Association. I think I'm getting feedback. Let me see here. Okay, this looks good. She's also a member of the Ghana Physicians and Surgeons Foundation of North America, and she currently holds a medical director of an outpatient behavior services in Baltimore, Maryland. Yes, as I said, she has over 30 years of experience in psychiatric practice. Dr. KANKAM, you're welcome to the Progressive Mind Show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, Dr. Murray Higgins. Oh man, I looking at your bio, and I think we would have to summarize it because it's a lot. This man is a natural-born healer. He resides in Alabama. Dr. Riggins completed his medical education at Meharry Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee. He in 1990. In 1990, he helped negotiated 10 prisoners. There was a situation in, I would say, Alabama. Dr. Reagan was the one that was called on to, based off his expertise, to let me read the story. Let me read the story. It's very, very interesting when I saw it. Dr. Reagan took an assignment at the federal prison in Talladega, Alabama, where he assumed the position of medical director in 1990. A federal rout erupted then. Dr. Riggins was called to handle negotiations, which he did very well. He also was able to negotiate safely 10 hostages at the time. That was 1992. He became the Federal Bureau of Prisons medical director in 1992. He has 30 years of medical practice. He's also involved in aesthetic medical practice, which is treatment of the skin. He does treatments of he does aging, facial rejuvenation, skin texture, and all of that. Dr. Riggins is not only an emergency physician. Okay, he does aesthetic cosmetic services too. And so this man has a lot of accolades. He's also a member of the National Medical Association and the American College of Emergency Physicians. And also the Southern Medical Association. It's just a lot, so I wouldn't bore you with his accolades, but at least to say that the man is an accomplished medical practitioner, and he's here this evening to help with the discussion of the international herb dealing with the African stigma. And so, Dr. Riggins, you are welcome to the Progressive Mind Show, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a blessing.
Brilliant. And my brother, Dr. Bright, hails from Ghana. He is currently pursuing a PhD in toxicology. Correct me if I'm wrong. He's currently a medical doctor in pharmacology. He's already a toxicologist, but currently pursuing his PhD in further studies in toxicology. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. Dr. Bright, you are welcome to the Progressive Mind Show.
It's my pleasure.
Brilliant. Now, this show is carried by MyStar Radio, which is based in Washington, D.C. It is a Pan-African radio station for the discerning listener. You can listen right now on MyStar Radio. You can Google MyStar, you can find it. And we are also live on Trend TV Africa on Facebook and of course, the Progressive Mind. Now, I'll start with Dr. I want us to understand if we look at, we hear about the herb, weed, marijuana all the time. Dr. Murray, please help us understand, if someone talks about the herb, what is it? How many categories of the herb do we have? Help us understand a breakdown and maybe give us a historical context of what it is, and then we can build off of that.
Okay. Well, thank you. Well, first of all, when talking about marijuana and hemp, the marijuana plant has been around for over 10,000 years. And there's a male plant and there's a female plant. The male plant is called hemp. The female plant is just the marijuana plant. The difference between the male plant and the female plant is the amount of THC that is associated with the plant. The female plant has high concentrations of THC.
What is THC?
For tetrahydrocannabinol.
Okay. That's
the stuff that gets you high. You heard the rap song, rolling down the street, smoking in dough, sipping on gin.
And juice, yeah.
You know,
yes.
And all that. Now, it has low concentrations of CBD or cannabidiol, which does not get you high, and it has a lot of medicinal qualities. Now, in the male plant, the hemp plant, just the opposite. You have high concentrations of the CBD, cannabidiol, which has the healing properties more, as well as it does not get you high. And then you have the lower concentrations of the THC, tetrahydrocannabinol. So you think male plant, don't get high. Female plant, you get high. And I think the female plant is the one where you have more of the stigma associated with it as opposed to the male plant. But there's a lot of healing, and then both of the plants can have some medicinal qualities.
Okay. Now, thanks for breaking it. But we also know that there are so many, I don't know, different types, right? So there is the Indian hemp, there is the weed itself there, and then there is the cannabis. Can you help us understand the different types? Or maybe Dr. Bright can help us with that. Dr. Bright, I know we discussed this. Can you help us understand the different types of herb that we have out there?
Okay, so scientifically, there are three broad groups. So we have what we call the cannabis indica, cannabis sativa, and then there's a hybrid. So the hybrid kinds of shares features with both the indica and then the sativa. But with the names like the hemp, the marijuana, some call it Mary Jane, even cannabis. It seems more to be kind of geographical. Okay, so
Okay.
yeah, so it's kind of a combination of whether it's indica, whether it's sativa, or whether it's a hybrid. So some people call it maybe the hemp or maybe cannabis or marijuana, but the main groups are what we call the sativa and the indica. And as Doc rightly said, the amount of the CBD or the THC actually predicts its effect or its usefulness.
Right. So in essence, it's the same thing, right, Doctor? So it's one plant, but if I understood what Dr. Bright and you just said, depending on your geographical location, there's a different name it's called. Is that what you're saying?
No,
Okay.
no. So what I'm saying is, there are, for the plant, there are 3 different species or variants. So for the Indian hemp or maybe the cannabis, you can have cannabis indica, cannabis sativa, and then the hybrid. So for all these 3, irrespective of where they are found, they could be called marijuana, they could be called Mary Jane, pot weed. Okay, so depending on what kind of variant you have, you might either have a high amount of CBD or a high THC or equal amount, almost a balanced amount of THC or CBD. And as I said earlier on, the concentrations of either THC or CBD will predict its usefulness or some of its toxicological features.
Okay. Dr. Reagan, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to what you just said.
Oh no, I concur. The only difference is in America, CBD is legal in all 50 states if it has less than 0.3% of THC. So if you have 0.4, it's illegal. They'll pull it off the shelves. Now, that's the big difference. There are 28 states in America where the female plant is legal. It's either medicinal marijuana or it's recreational marijuana, but it has higher amounts of the THC. But for the most part, in all 50 states in America, the CBD or the hemp oil is legal as long as it has less than 0.3% of the THC.
Okay. We looks like we have a caller. Can you tell us your name and why you're calling? Hello, can you hear us? Hello? Hello, caller.
Good evening, this is Dr. Stacey Lang. Am I the caller you're referring to?
Yes. You just called into the show?
Yes, I was just calling in to listen to this phenomenal information.
Oh, okay. So the number you called is when you want to contribute or ask a question. So in order for you to listen, you can watch it on, if you have access to Facebook or YouTube, you can go on the page and watch it. Okay. Because this is a call to the studio if you wanted to contribute or ask a question. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Well, so the phone line has been given up, but I think they probably saw it on the flyer. We will give you the line. We will give the chance to speak after around 7 p.m. To share your ideas. But if you want to watch it, it's on Facebook, The Progressive Minds, and on YouTube, it's The Progressive Mind Show. Okay, so what we want to understand is the substance, what it stands for, what it is, its medicinal component. It's chemical, it's chemical content, right? And so because we understand that even in some of our medications that we use today, some of the, most of the drugs that we use today that you can find in our pharmaceutical stores has elements of the hemp. And you being a toxicologist, Dr. Bright, can you tell us, I know there are many, but can you maybe list a couple of drugs that are out there that has a composition of the hemp?
Okay, so most of these drugs are basically used for anti-seizure, like kind of controlling seizures. Some are used for controlling pain. Some are also used in kind of anxiety disorders. So they could come in just medical. They could come in medical oils. So for the oil, usually before you attempt using any oil, you kind of have to contact your primary physician because of the possibility of some kind of drug interactions. So based on where you find yourself, you can have these drugs which are kind of approved. Okay. So I think the FDA, as at now, there are some of these drugs which are approved. And as Doc mentioned earlier on, these drugs are the ones which usually have high levels of the CBD or the cannabidiols. So you could have these drugs. It could be just your primary drug that you'll be taking, or sometimes it could be added to other forms of medication that you can take.
Okay. Now, Dr. Regan, you've also been in this. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, so an example of this could be Epidiolex, which sometimes could be prescribed by your primary physician, and other ones could be Syndros. That's called the dronabinol. Okay, so these drugs could be just your primary drug that you're going to use, or probably an adjunctive therapy. So probably somebody with seizure, which is kind of poorly controlled, your physician might kind of prescribe or want to put you on one of these cannabidiols, which are kind of non-psychoactive, and they've been shown to kind of help in some form of resistant seizures, especially in kids. It's been shown to prove some form of efficacy in children.
Okay. I wanted to get Dr. Now, I know Dr. JEMIMA KANKAM haven't spoken yet, but based on what we discussed so far, if you want to contribute or maybe have an input on what they have mentioned so far, you please go ahead and do so. If not, I would like Dr. Regan to tell us some of the drugs, regular drugs that we like Tylenol and all of this. Do these, off-the-counter drugs that we take have a composition or contain this herb that we are talking about? But let me get Dr. JEMIMA the chance to say something. If not, we'll go to Dr. Regan.
Well, in my field, patients are not coming saying I'm taking the female or male, or it just, do you smoke marijuana?
Right.
So it's all lumped in there. So the stigma is not about the ones that have been approved or the ones that are used for FDA approved. That's not where the stigma is coming from. The stigma is coming from the ordinary person on the street using, we don't ask. When we ask, in the hospital or in medical practice, do you smoke marijuana? That's where the stigma is coming from. So let's hear from the experts on the different composition, and then we can come to the real world.
Exactly. With the real, thank you for thanks for that point, because that is where we want to dive in deeply. But Dr. Regan, if you in your practice, how often or how have you had to experience or use the herb in treatment of your patients?
Well, basically, what I do in my practice, because we deal with medical aesthetics, I use what we call the CBD or the hemp oil, which is a tincture of the oil that you get extracted from the stalk and the seed, and I use that for people who are suffering with anxiety and trying to get them off of benzodiazepines and all these other synthetic anti-anxiety medications, because first of all, you don't need a prescription for it. It doesn't get you high. And because it activates your endocannabinoid system, it can help bring your body back in balance. And therefore you'll feel better, you'll be healthier, and it helps with your anxiety and pain, as Dr. Bright mentioned earlier. And to me, it's the way we all should be going to, because synthetic medicines have a laundry list of side effects, of potential side effects. But this herb has been around the planet for 10,000 years, and it's just not happenstance that it's here. So whatever stigma we have, I think it's been indoctrinated upon us because this is really something that can be helpful if we understand it.
So basically what you're saying, Dr. Regan, is that the herb itself, it's not necessarily a very bad drug, or no, let me just say drug, a bad or negative substance, but it is the way it's being used sometimes, or the way it's being portrayed to look.
Exactly. It's like, it's more of a tool. It's like an inanimate object. It's like a hammer. A hammer can be used to build a house, or it can be used to murder somebody.
Okay.
It's just that, is the hammer bad? Well, the herbs is similar in a way because it can be used to be helpful, to help your body stay healthy. It's not as bad as some people who might abuse it. Nobody's ever died from an overdose of marijuana. Nobody's ever, it's and you compare it to alcohol and nicotine and other things, there are a lot worse things you could be involved in than the marijuana. But in America, it became a negative stereotype because it was based upon economics.
Okay.
Economics. Well, there are 50,000 uses of hemp, from ropes to paper. The American Constitution is written on hemp paper.
Can you say that again?
The American Constitution is written on hemp paper.
Wow.
So they took the hemp and they made paper from it. So that automatically competed against paper mills that were using trees. J.D. Rockefeller, Randolph Hearst were millionaires in the 1920s and 30s who owned paper mills. It takes 25 years to grow a tree. It takes about 8 weeks to grow hemp. So the hemp market was basically killing the paper mill market. So they had to demonize the hemp market. And so they launched a massive attack through the papers that J.D. Randolph Hearst owned, which was sort of like Facebook back in the 1930s, saying that hemp is bad, it comes from marijuana. Marijuana is the same thing as hemp, it's bad. If your children smoke it, they'll go to jail. If your wife smoke it, they'll want to be with black men. And we got to get rid of hemp. We got to get rid of marijuana. And so bombarding the American society with all these negative stereotypes, they basically got it demonized, and therefore their paper mills began to prosper. And they did such a great job, even until the 2020s, there's still some residual stigma associated with it based on what happened back in 1930s.
Okay. So Dr. Bright and Dr. JEMIMA, maybe you can also help us. Why is the herb looked at in a very, very negative vibe when it comes to our community? Now, I've spoken to you guys a couple of times, and I've also tried to compare or tried to analyze in Africa. We are seen to be very comfortable when it comes to cigarettes or tobacco products, right? I've had friends, uncles, and some one or two uncles and an auntie who used to smoke cigarettes. And as a kid, it was okay. We could be around these people, But if you had weed in your hand, guess what? You are not even going to be able to approach. You are not able to go come into the community. You will be stopped at the gate. You cannot be anywhere around people with weed in Africa. And so people are forced to go into the bush, living in uncompleted buildings to indulge in these things. So why does Africa also have this very negative reaction when it comes to the herb, if in fact it is not necessarily a bad or harmful substance if used in the right way?
Let's remember that all these studies have been recent. Okay, so you were not hearing of CBD in the 80s.
Yes.
So it was illegal. That's to start. It was illegal, and it's still illegal in certain places. In Maryland, it's just been a couple of years now. So back in the 80s, okay, there wasn't, there wasn't the opiate problem. There wasn't the super dopey killing people problems in the drugs. So the marijuana, I can tell you that as much as it was common, people couldn't just do it openly. It wasn't just about stigma. It was, you go to jail, and there are many people, many good people, I must say, who still are in jail for having a small portion.
Right.
So the stigma starts with, you are doing something that is illegal.
Illegal. Okay.
And even back home, again, it wasn't the era of internet where everybody knows, everybody now is sophisticated and knows what's going on. You are like those in the Western countries. So that was the worst thing you can use.
Okay.
There wasn't cocaine and all that there. So that's one of the things.
Yeah. So what I'm asking is, why is it that it was the worst thing you could use back then, if the herb is actually natural, if it's grown everywhere, and if it's if it has its medicinal values to the body? Why was it illegal even for Africa? I mean, we know, Dr. Riggins just gave us maybe the American background. For Africa too, why was it so, something, a no-go area for people of the African continent?
Well, I don't know what we just heard that there are many species and there are many. These are all information studies and information that we're getting. Back home, if you see someone, you're talking about cigarettes. Again, about 50 years ago, if a young person was smoking, definitely if it's a female that is smoking, it was also a big stigma.
Right.
So culture, it takes a while. You were doing something, and some people, depending on, maybe they were smoking, maybe what was available was the high THC. So if you are high, they definitely saw some people who were high. So people don't talk about this is CBD and this is this. It's hemp or it's marijuana.
Right. So technically, it's how people react when they use it is what was used to judge the substance itself. Dr. Bright, you maybe can help us.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, I had the privilege to live with some of my grandparents, and they have that tobacco. They snort the one they put in their noses every time, and that stuff made them high. It made them strong. How different is that from the herb?
All right. So the issue with the herb or with tobacco or with nicotine is the smoke. So what happens is, whenever any organic material like
you mean the smoke that comes out of it?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so anything that is smoked, like even a piece of paper, is organic. So there are several chemicals which are released whenever you burn any organic material like plants, the leaves, the roots, or even a paper.
Right.
So these chemicals are called hydrocarbons.
Okay.
So these chemicals are very toxic. Potentially, they could be very toxic.
Okay.
Yeah. So what happens is, based on the route of exposure, that's how you got the herb in. If it's smoked, these hydrocarbons can have an impact on your lungs. It could have an impact on your liver through various enzyme activities, which could affect other drugs. If you're taking in other drugs, it could affect the way these drugs act on your body. So one issue with the cannabis is that, as it stands now, there are about 128 different chemicals in cannabis, and only 2 are well known. That's the THC and the CBD.
Okay.
So the 126 chemicals, not much is known about these chemicals. So the issue now becomes, what are these chemicals doing in our bodies? If we take them in orally, how are they affecting us? If we smoke these in, how are they affecting us?
Okay.
Yeah. And the issue or the stigma in Africa or back at home is, or within the blacks is, if you compare blacks and Caucasians, for the lifetime of every black, there is a high tendency of developing psychosis or some form of psychiatric illness, as compared to about 7.6 in Caucasians. So, growing up, I got to know that whenever you get this hemp smoked, you might have some form of psychiatric disorder. But research has shown that is not actually a cause but a trigger. So people who develop this form of psychosis have already a pre-existing tendency or some form of genetic susceptibility in developing psychosis. So the cannabis just unmasks it or kind of triggers this psychosis in these individuals. Yeah.
Wow.
So as mentioned earlier, the THC is the main culprit, especially when it gets in a volatile form or when it's being smoked. Because some people take it in brownies or let's say in cake or some other form, even in form of tea. So whenever you smoke it, the amount of the THC or the CB that gets into your body reaches your body in high concentrations within a very short interval. And your liver could become overwhelmed. It cannot break it down properly into less toxic forms and could trigger some form of I will quote psychosis. But that depends on the level of the THC, as mentioned. But with let me get back to the tobacco issue. So the same with tobacco. Whenever you smoke, the key issue with cigarette or tobacco is not really the nicotine is kind of harmful, but there are other metals or other toxic substances which are found in nicotine, which are more toxic even compared to nicotine itself. So the issue becomes the smoke. So there are people who smoke in cigarette and develop sometimes lung cancers, and the others who smoke their whole lives and never develop lung cancers. The issue is genetic susceptibility. Some people within their normal state are susceptible to developing some forms of cancers. So the minimum exposure to these chemicals could unmask or trigger this form of conditions.
Okay. Wow.
You touched on something, that is very important. So why are we talking about the stigma? Especially back home and even here in the US 2020.
Yeah, I would come to the stigma, but yeah, I wanted us to look further into this component, but go ahead with your comment. But we really would like to go into the stigma after 7 p.m. So go ahead.
The comment is that, the assumption that, any psychosis or anything that is abnormal, you just smoked weed, or you smoked marijuana, even here, where, like he said, it may be unmasking. And what happens is then that the person is not given the opportunity to get a medical evaluation because you just assume it's only because they are smoking marijuana, and if they stopped, everything will be okay. That's the point. I was emphasizing what he just said.
Okay, and in your 30-some years of practicing as a psychiatrist, can you give us a percentage of your patient's illness or health problems in connection to marijuana? Can you give us maybe a breakdown as to based off how you've treated your patient? I mean, based on your experience with patients.
You know what? It depends on where you are. I have always worked in inner city.
Okay.
And so let me even give my experience. Back in the 80s, if you ask about drug use, I learned that if you say, do you use drugs? If you don't ask specifically about marijuana, you get a no, because it was so common. It's like cigarette smoking.
Okay.
And you think, it's only for those who didn't make it. I also have a practice that was near a university, a big, huge university college. And some of the people who are using, they are probably senators and, doctors and lawyers. And, so marijuana is, I think, common everywhere.
That's why it's the international herb.
Yeah. Come on, male and female.
Yeah.
And yes, and what we say is finding out is that some of them, one question I've asked for over 20 years. So even though I haven't done research on my own, right, I've seen thousands of people. It doesn't matter what you say you take. My next question is, what does it do for you? So I can predict now what the person will say. It makes me calm, I'm not as tense so that I can sleep. I'm not promoting the use of marijuana, but what I do then is, if I assume if that was the answer, they wouldn't be in front of me. However, if I do not help them with what they were using it for, which we call self-medication, then I'm not going to be successful with the person. So it's not about just preaching, you doing this, stop. Now, in the 80s, we would say, if you don't stop using marijuana, we won't give you your medication. And the chemical dependency world also would say, if you're on any medication, we can't let you come to the rehab. We both know now, hopefully, that we need each other. Some people can't stop using whatever, including marijuana, unless the underlying psychological problem is identified, or problems usually unsolved. That is where we find ourselves now. So we call dual diagnosis is the norm more than exception. People have mental illness and they have substance use. But when we are seeing someone, you go all the way back. When did you start feeling anxiety? You know, Dr. Riggins talked about treating anxiety. People go back to when I was in elementary school, 5th grade. They were not using marijuana back there, but nobody asked them. Nobody asked children. People talk for them and assume. So by the time they are in middle school, you know,
high school,
middle school.
Okay.
You know, first of all, the average age of onset of most of the psychiatric illnesses book says 14. I can tell you, people go all the way. We all can remember when we were 5th grade, 4th grade, and getting in trouble. Okay, so mostly now people get in trouble. They're on the street. You try. Most people, they don't go and say, I want marijuana for my ABC. They try it and they find, oh, and now I can calm down. Now I can do this. Of course, it becomes gateway for many people for other things.
Okay.
But what I'm stressing is, let's not always assume that is the cause of all their ills.
Right. Thank you so much for helping us understand that part of the discussion. You're watching the Progressive Mind Show. We are talking about the international herb dealing with the African stigma. It is 6:43 p.m. CST here in Chicago. The weather is still about 40, 48, 50 degrees. We are blessed in Chicago. For us, this is, Dr. Regan says, for Chicago, 50 degrees is like summer. And so we'll take it until the bitter cold starts. If you would like to contribute to the show in 15 minutes, you can call into the studio. The number is 815-277-5047. The show is being carried by MyStar Radio in Washington, D.C. It is a Pan-African radio station for the discerning listener. 24/7, good vibe, good music, good talk shows. And I'm still here with my guest, Dr. JEMIMA KANKAM, a 30-year experience in psychiatric. She's a psychiatrist. You got to be careful when you mention the scientific words. She resides in Maryland. Dr. Bright KANKAM is in Canada. He's Dr. Bright KANKAM is a pharmacologist and a toxicologist pursuing further studies in toxicology, which is his PhD program that he's currently undertaking. The veteran himself is still here with us, Dr. Murray Regan, who's also based out in Alabama. Dr. Murray, we have Dr. Bright said something very interesting. He said that, if I heard him correctly, he said Black people are susceptible to or are prone to mental ill issues. Dr. Bright, was that am I accurate by paraphrasing you in that manner?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Okay, so Dr. Regan, can you accentuate that and maybe expand on that based off your experience and how patients who have been in your hands, patients' issues have been related to the herb or marijuana? If you can tell us a little bit about it.
know, Black people worldwide have been very persecuted people for, you know, generations. And when you have all that trauma hurled upon you, psychiatric, physical trauma, emotional trauma, you know, there's a price to pay. I mean, and one of the things, we try to be strong and everything, and but it still takes a toll on our psyche. And what we do when we're faced with all that trauma is we try to keep going. We try to keep, you know, pursuing and looking for a better day. And one of the things you do is self-medicate. And I think Dr. KANKAM said that, you know, people are self-medicating at home for years. Nobody ever knew it since, you know, age 14 because of all the trauma. And I think that's why we're more susceptible to the anxiety and the depression, because we've been, you know, pressed down for so long that one of the things we do to keep going is to self-medicate. And this marijuana plant, especially the hemp, can help you do that legally. Even the recreational marijuana, which has high THC, helps to, you know, dull the symptoms, make you a little bit more, I guess, pliable. And yeah, it can be a gateway drug to other things, but I think that's why, you know, we are more susceptible to psychiatric illness, is that our existence for the last, you know, thousands of years, at least 400 years, has been a very telling pressure cook experience because of all the trauma, emotional, psychiatric, you know, physical, that we've been, you know, subjected to.
Well, okay, thanks for explaining that. Last week, or maybe 3 weeks ago, on this show, a week or two ago, we talked about the efficacy of vitamin D. On that show, we learned that naturally Black people, because of the melanin, we block the, you know, whatever we're supposed to be getting from the sun, the UA, let me not say the wrong word, but anyway, we understand what I'm saying. Yes, because of the melanin, we don't absorb enough vitamin D from the sun as we're supposed to. So that's just naturally something genetic. So to Dr. Bright's point, and to your point, what I'm trying to get to is that, is this something that's genetically in the Black person, or is solely based off the trauma that Black people have been subjected to, or Black people have had to endure over centuries? Again, another reason why I'm asking this is that Africans, we're on the continent of Africa. I don't think that we necessarily have been subjected to, you know, a physical type of, you know, mental pressure, something like, you know, maybe compared to what you might be talking about, Dr. Reagan. So that is what I'm trying to get to. So maybe Dr. Bright and Dr. Reagan, if you guys can help us understand, make a clear distinction. Is this solely that whatever Black people have gone through, or is just genetically something that we have that causes us to have psychiatric issues?
Okay.
Remiss if I didn't say, even in Africa, you might have thought it was easygoing, and you were talking to some people, you would find out that they've had wars and, you know, mass murders, and you know, one tribe rising up and killing the other tribes. You know, the South Africa, all kind of things were going on. Okay. And I would like to hear what Dr. KANKAM says about that, because being a psychiatrist, she's bombarded with this every day.
Right. I know Dr. Bright wants to add something to that. Dr. Bright, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. To add to what he said, one issue is it could be purely genetic, and also it could have an influence from the environment. So initially, we all knew the environment didn't have any effect on genetics, but currently it's been shown that environmental impact can have an influence on genetics. So there is a phenomenon they call epigenetics, and it could be inherited. So from prolonged environmental stresses, it could affect your genes. And if you're not careful, you could transfer it to your offspring, and then it carries on to your next generations. So that is one aspect. So
you agree to Dr. Reagan's point that Africans have had our share of, you know, struggles. It could be civil wars, tribal wars, of course, colonialism and all of that. So some of these things could have contributed to our being susceptible to mental or psychiatric issues.
Yeah, exactly. And it could just even be purely environmental. I mean, the kind of stress that one will go through alone could just tip the person off. So.
Okay, so let me say this jokingly. Maybe ours might not be the worst, but it's just abject poverty and hunger. If you're very hungry, that stuff can affect your psyche, man. You know, like extreme hunger can make you. There's a term or a saying in Ghana that a hungry man is an angry man. So, Dr. KANKAM, please go ahead.
Okay, so first, when we think mental health issues,
right,
especially in Africa, okay, you're thinking just the people you walking down the streets.
Okay,
you're not thinking about there's a whole range, just like there are the whole range of so-called physical health issues. So we're talking about depression, anxiety, but what the pops in the person's mind is, is the people who have psychosis, schizophrenia. Okay, there's a whole range. Also, now we talk about the social determinants of health. The same reason that we heard that it's not that the COVID, the coronavirus likes or prefers the Blacks, and other minorities. It is because of the other risk factors. In the same way for mental health illnesses, things like, jobs, Dr. Reagan said historically, the Blacks are probably would be the ones to be in the lower rung of the socioeconomic class, and all other things that have been discussed a lot, even in this pandemic. Okay, right. So it's not so much as the genetics. Also, even in the US, there is less likely, again, because of what he explained, because of all that has happened in the past, the Blacks and other minorities are less likely to present for treatment. Because, again, of the stigma of having mental illness, period. So you're not going to capture them. So many people are ill, but you don't see them.
Okay.
So it's not just about the genes. There's a lot more to it.
Okay. Well, thank you for helping us understand that. We are talking about the international herb, dealing with the African stigma. We're glad that you have joined us on Facebook and on YouTube. My name is Alinko, and I am being helped to get into this subject by 3 astute doctors in our community who are helping and impacting us so greatly. And so I am very grateful for your time. 3 doctors, 1 beautiful female, and 3 handsome men. All right, black don't crack. We were having a conversation backstage before the show about black don't crack. And read between the lines. You understand what I'm saying? Now we have Oben Ipe John Ikem, one of our top fans. My brother, soon to be a co-host of the Progressive Mind Show, God willing. Oben is watching us, and he's passed his comment. I'm going to share his comment very soon. Rebecca Mode is here with us. Hassan Motovu, Andrew, Nenya, Bonnie, Marco, Dr. Avocat Salate is also here. He is a great doctor, great friend. Doc, you're welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. Portia is here. Let me share Portia's comment. She says, Dr. Portia says, hello, Progressive Minds. Great show. 2-part questions. What is the fastest way to consume CBD or the herb with THC, and are there side effects to the lungs and brain? Who wants to take this question?
Okay, I'll go first.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so as mentioned earlier, the route of exposure is very critical. So whether it's oral, inhalational, and some even do vaporizers. So that's more like secondary inhalational exposure. So if you smoke it or you take it inhalationally, it is going to be absorbed quickly with a very high blood concentration. And if you're going to experience any effect, it's going to be of a quicker onset. So for the THC, if you're going to experience a side effect, the quickest way is going to be through smoking. Nonetheless, there are various drug-drug interactions, drug-chemical interactions. So if you're taking orally and you are also taking another drug, there are certain drugs which tends to inhibit the enzyme that breaks down the THC. So if you're taking that drug concurrently, then orally you're going to have a very high side effect from the THC. But that is if you're taking in another drug that interacts with the THC. And with the lungs, it could be multiple effects. It could be just local effects in the lungs through, it could just be ulceration, it could be increasing certain enzymes, which kind of lead to damage within the lung architecture or within the lung membrane. But for the brain, depending on which parts of the brain it acts. So in the brain, there is the cannabinoid receptor type 1. There are two main types, type 1 and type 2. In the brain, you have basically type 1, and in the spleen, liver, lungs, you have type 2. So if THC, depending on how strongly it binds to the type 1 in your brain, if it affects an area which kind of gives you the euphoria, you're going to have the euphoric feeling. If it's going to lead to anxiety, you can also have it. So that is what I would give. I think Dr. Riggins can give his input.
Right. Thanks for helping and breaking that down. Dr. Portia, I hope that is satisfactory based off his explanation. If Dr. Riggins wants to add something, that's fine. If not, we would like to take a short break.
That CBD can be taken sublingually. That's under the tongue as a tincture, and a couple of drops under your tongue, and it bypasses the gastrointestinal system and goes absorbed into the bloodstream. And we have a thing in America where we use nanotechnology, where we combine nanites, which are tiny liposomal structures, to coat the CBD molecule to make it more water soluble, which gives you a better bioavailability of 98.7% to the target cells in the body. And to me, that's the safest way to take it sublingually under your tongue with the nanites surrounding the CBD molecule. So you get more of the tincture of the CBD actually to the target cells in the body to exert its effect.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Riggins, for a great response. Let's go back to our comments on Facebook. We have Jerome Hughes who's watching us on YouTube. He says, awesome, thank you, Jerome, for watching. Let's see here. Okay, thanks so much, Francisca Edu, for watching, says Rebecca. Francisca, thank you so much for chiming into the show. Bonnie Marco says, very informative session and inspiring. Thank you so much, Bonnie. Drew Menya says, interesting perspective. Thank you, Drew. And we have I think is a comment. Let me see if we can read this. Blonsey Stardom says, I personally don't smoke marijuana, and when I was young, my uncle, who is a lawyer, used to smoke it in the house, and he told us that it is not for poor people. His reason was that if you smoke it without having enough money to sustain yourself, it will compel you to go and steal. So it got into my head not to even try it. But I don't judge people who smoke it, because everyone has his or her own reason for using it. That is from Blonsey Stardom. Thank you so much for sharing your comment and your experience. And then Hassan says, thank you again, educative indeed. David K. Ziga says, great job, SENAALINCO. My brother Davidson, thank you so much. Rebecca's comment, she says, okay, I think she was not hearing sound, but looks like the sound should be fine now. Oben John says, good evening, my people. Thank you for accepting the invitation to share your thoughts and educate our communities. We are proud of you. Thank you, Oben, for bringing in your comment. It's 7 p.m. We'll take a short break after this. The discussion continues. You're still watching the Progressive Mind Show, which is also carried by My Star Radio in Washington, D.C., a Pan-African radio station for the discerning listener. We shall be right back after this short break.
Check out this beautifully made artistry of coffee tables made from a combination of recycled tires, jute ropes, wood, and fabric to suit your style. Yes, we make to order. These coffee tables can help you make a statement in your bedrooms, offices, and living rooms. But remember, we only ship within the USA and Canada after shipping cost is paid. Call Jasper Designs on 1-306-203-2650 or email us at doduyayra@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at Jasper Love or follow Pearl Yara Agboka on Facebook. Don't be left out. Please place your orders now.
Welcome back to the show. It is the Progressive Minds. My name is Alinko, and we are talking about the international herb, dealing with the African stigma. If you missed the first half of it, we were trying to get into the history of it, why the stigma, some of the medical components, some of the chemical components of it, and whatnot. We will still want to talk about, I want us to look at the medicinal values or the health benefits of the herb. Dr. Bright and Dr. Regan, can you help us understand some of the medicinal values that are in there that helps the human body, reason why we should not necessarily see it from that negative perspective as we have done in the past?
I hit on it when you were talking about the CB1 receptors and the CB2 receptors. See, the endocannabinoid system was just discovered like 1964, and it's the main system that governs every cell in our body. We have over 100 trillion cells in our body.
Okay.
And these cells have CB1 receptors and CB2 receptors. And the endocannabinoid system, its number one job is to keep the body in what we call in medicine homeostasis or balance. So here we go. The endocannabinoid system's job is to keep our cells in balance, therefore keeping the whole body in balance. And it does that by turning up the activity or turning down the activity of certain cells or group of cells that are overproducing or underproducing.
Okay.
And it's doing this 24 hours and 7 days a week. What happens when the CBD oil helps stimulate the body to make more of its own endocannabinoid called anandamide. And anandamide is the gasoline that powers this endocannabinoid system. So the more CBD you take, the more it powers the body to make anandamide, and the stronger the endocannabinoid system is to help keep your body in balance, therefore giving you medicinal benefits.
Wow. Dr. Bright, would you want to add to what he just said?
Okay, so I will just dwell on a few benefits of the medicinal cannabis.
Okay, and help us a little bit, okay?
Yeah, so it's been shown to also kind of boost the immune system because we have these CB2 receptors also in the immune cells. And also, I mentioned earlier, it's also being used to treat some form of resistant seizures, especially in kids. It's been proven to show some form of efficacy or some form of effectiveness. And also, when it comes to the cannabidiol, or that's the CBD, it also helps in relieving anxiety. But one of the issues is tolerance. So tolerance, basically, I would put it as the body tends to kind of produce an opposite effect after a chronic or a long exposure, or a long intake of a particular drug. So let's say you're taking in the CBD for maybe anxiety, and initially you were taking in, I would say, I won't just quantify it, maybe 1 teaspoon. Let me just quantify 1 teaspoon. So that was giving you some form of relief from anxiety. But you realize that after a point in time, you realize you're not having the same effect if you're taking the 1 teaspoon, but rather you're having what we call anxiety. That's more like a rebound effect. And they need to increase the amount of the CBD. And that is where sometimes the issue comes in. The issue comes in as you increase the dose, where you might have some potential side effects. And then there is this common adage that we usually use in my field. We always say that the dose defines the poison.
Okay.
So what is like everything in this world could be poisonous. Even the water we take in, as pure as it is, could be poisonous. Even the oxygen we breathe in. So every 100 breaths you take, one of them is poisonous. So there's nothing without poison, but it's the dose that defines it. So that is where it comes in. If you take in the recreational one, I'm just trying to go back a bit. Taking the recreational one, you can actually quantify the dose you're taking in. And that is where sometimes it becomes a challenge.
You said if you're taking the recreational one, it does what again?
You're taking the recreational one, you cannot actually quantify the dose you are taking in.
Okay, so for people who don't understand what recreational is, and can we help differentiate what is recreational and what is not recreational? So yeah.
Okay, so I would say basically recreation is taking it for pleasure, or like probably you want to get a bit high, so you feel like, oh, let me just take in just for my pastime. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the non-recreational is when you're taking it for some form of condition, like you have some scenes like multiple sclerosis where there's severe pain. You have epilepsy where you want to control your seizures, or you have some form of chronic pain in cancers. You want to kind of relieve your pain a bit. So that's when you take it, and that becomes more medicinal. And the other aspect is recreational.
Got it. So, Dr. Riggins, I don't know. Yeah, go ahead, Dr. JEMIMA.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that in terms of recreational. Okay, so most people who are using marijuana are not those who go to Dr. Riggins and know that you have a teaspoon, you have this, he knows you get this, and you know how to take it, how many times. We wouldn't be talking about the international help if we were talking about that. We're talking about the majority of people who go in the streets and go to their supplier and get it. They don't know what they are getting. They don't know they're getting the type 1, type 2. They're just getting it.
Right.
You know? Right. So that is the problem, that it's only now, the studies, the science of it is only now, and the CBD where you go to someone or you have it, that's just a small portion. But the main thing is those who are using it and don't know what they are getting. And by the way, again, back in the 80s, I don't know about now, marijuana was the most laced drug. There were people who came to the hospital and they were completely psychotic, out of control. We believed them that they thought they were buying marijuana, and it was laced with PCP. So there are many, so that is the issue. And what he said, that a drug is only as good as the dose. If you go take Tylenol, you know that you take 2 tablets, that it has been studied. 2 tablets will help you. If you take 10 tablets, that's an overdose. It will destroy your liver. Okay. So maybe in another couple of years, we will know more about it. But for now, in terms of that, it's just a risk you take.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. If you want to call in to the show, the number is 815-277-5047. 815-277-5047. Also, we are encouraging our listeners to contribute to the Progressive Mind Show. We need your support. It's theprogressivemindshow.com. If you go on our website, you can make a donation to us. We definitely need your support to improve on our equipment and to keep this show going. It takes a lot to get here. As you can see, I have 3 huge doctors on my show. You think I can pay these people for even 20 minutes of their time? And so it's really a privilege to have you guys, and I really appreciate you doing. And I know you're doing this for the community. So Dr. KANKAM, Dr. Bright, and Dr. Riggins, thank you so much for coming here to help us. Dr. Avoke Selete, I hope the sound is good now. If not, please let me know. Then thank you for the information, both of you. Yes, it did help a lot. Okay, so Dr. She was responding to, she's just responding to your response to her question. So thank you. Dr. Volker says that stress, environment, social, and other related issues may drive individuals to take hemp as a gateway to usage these to assuage these inherent factors. Question is, why do some people smoke hemp and are okay, whereas when others take it, it drives them mad? Is it tolerance level? Dr. Regan or Dr. Regan, Dr. Bright, Dr. KANKAM, who wants to respond to this first?
I don't have a reference for that.
Okay.
Well, I think Dr. Bright has talked about your risk factor and why do some people eat all kinds of things and their blood sugar is fine and their blood pressure is fine, and some people it doesn't. We have risk factors, and again, that's why it's important that if you're taking a risk, even if, like in Maryland, it is legal. Unfortunately, the legal, even though it's called medical marijuana, nobody asks you to ask your doctor whether you can have it. There is nothing medical about it. You just call, you get the information, you get the authorization, you find your money, and you go get it. Whereas if you went to a doctor for anything, they know about your other medical problems. They know what dosage, they know the side effects, and that is the risk. So it's the medical. We need to be talking about the medical more than the morality of it.
Okay, so the medical more than the morality and the recreational aspect of the international herb. Please keep your questions and your comments coming in, because you help to understand, to help us understand and try to deal with the stigma of marijuana. It wouldn't take just the four of us or the five of us, but you and everybody else in the community. So please, let's engage as they also help us give us a good understanding of what this is. Dr. Bright, when you were speaking earlier, you mentioned something about, no, I think it was Dr. Regan, the CBD and something about our control system, something that controls our system, and I've forgotten the terminology for it. Now, how crucial is that? And I think I was having a conversation about cancer, black men and prostate cancer, and black men prone to prostate cancer and all of that. Does recreational or medicinal marijuana, does any chemical in the hemp help, in this factor, help men fight any type of cancer, especially prostate cancer?
What the studies have recently been showing, it goes back to that system I talked about earlier called the endocannabinoid system, ECS.
Thank you.
Endocannabinoid. And its main function is to keep cells in balance. In cancer cells, what you have are cells that keep replicating, multiplying, and their off switch is broken. So they keep multiplying, sucking up all the body's nutrients. The rest of the body is starving while these cancer cells keep growing. And one of the things that the endocannabinoid system can do is sort of like tone down those cells that are constantly replicating.
Exactly.
And it's like a suicide pill for the specific cells that are overactive, and it'll turn down their activity if the endocannabinoid system is strong enough. And to do that, it has to have a lot of anandamide, which is the body's own cannabinoid that it makes. And the hemp helps to stimulate the body to make more of the anandamide.
Okay.
The endocannabinoid system, the ECS system, stronger, and to help control cancerous cells.
Okay, that's deep. That's deep. I don't know if Dr. Bright wants to add anything to that.
Okay, I think what I'll add is he mentioned is probably the medicinal cannabis that usually helps, but from my point of view, on the other side, if you tend to smoke it in or let's take it by smoke, I'm looking at the other aspect. So as mentioned earlier, whenever you smoke, there are huge kind of chemicals which are released, and some of these are kind of genotoxic. That they can affect your DNA, and they can even, on their own, promote some form of cancers. So if you smoke it in and you are not careful, and you have, let's say, prostate cancer, you could, in a way, that depends on the individual. As mentioned, always the individual matters. It's not something that you can generalize. It's more like individualized. So if you smoke it in, if you're not careful, you might even worsen your prostate cancer. But if you're taking the medicinal oil or the medicinal cannabis, which is kind of well structured, the right dose, then you might have some benefits from it. Because in that sense, you know, you're just dealing with the CBD alone and not the other chemicals that will arise from smoking or like smoke.
Right. Excellent point. Thank you so much for helping break that down a little further. I have a comment here from Dr. Salete. Let's see if we can take. He says that one of the biggest medical benefits of cannabis is its link to fighting cancer. There is a good amount of evidence that shows cannabinoids can help fight cancer, or at least certain types of it. Thank you so much, Dr. Avoke Salete. Dr. Bright, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I'll respond to that. So I mentioned earlier that these cannabinoids tend to build up or boost your immune system. So the immune system not only fights against infections, but they also kind of fight against cancers. So what it does is there is one arm of the immune system which tends to regulate or tends to mop up abnormal cells, or that's the cancerous cells. Okay. So if you're taking these cannabinoids, it could help boost your immune system. The cells could be very active, and at the end, they could kind of mop up these abnormal cancerous cells, and then that could be kind of beneficial. So that is one area they are also tackling, and I think it would be really great if there is a breakthrough in that sector.
Okay. So one way or the other, if anybody wants to engage or use, the herb for medicinal purposes or for even recreational purposes, I think the way you take it in the body is a big factor. Whether you smoke it or boil it or take it through another form, so the how it gets into the body is also very, very important. Is that am I right by saying that, Dr. Regan?
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's why I said you're trying to get a higher bioavailability, which means you're trying to get the most of the CBD or the hemp oil to the target cells in your body.
Right.
Whatever gives you the highest bioavailability gives you a better effect.
Got it.
Take it by mouth and just go into your stomach, you might get 10 to 15% bioavailability.
Right.
If you smoke it, vaping used to be really big, and it's it became a bad thing because of all the stuff they were adding to the vape.
Okay.
But that's why I said sublingually under your tongue is a safe way, and if you have the right product, you get a high bioavailability. That means you get a better effect.
Thank you, Dr. JEMIMA. So back in Africa. I want us to look at the typical Africa stigma. When somebody has dreadlocks or somebody twists their hair, especially a youth, a man, once you have that, even for women, once you have that, you automatically associated with the weed, and you were instantly seen as a very bad person, if I can use the word literally, like you're bad. Like an outcast, and we attribute, hemp or the weed to that. Or you smoke, you have dreadlocks, or you smoke weed, and we also attribute mental illness. Most mental illness in Ghana, we call it mad people, right? MAD. Okay, so anybody that has that problem, automatically we say, oh, they want to smoke some weed. How does weed affect our brain? In fact, if people have had mental illness and have turned into maybe, let's say, quote unquote crazy people, right? how does weed make someone get to that state?
Okay, so first, culture beats science anytime. So just because you have a scientific explanation doesn't change a mindset. I think we all can see this around us. Okay, so it doesn't matter what the science now is saying about, you know, there are some medicinal part of it. I'm sure they've seen some people who got psychotic who are acting abnormally, especially young people. You know, it's associated with young people. If an adult, if a middle-aged person is behaving abnormally, it's not likely they're going to say that was hemp. It's usually school age, you know, young adults. Okay. So the culture that has, the same way that the culture is that it's not, if it's not hemp, it's somebody, some witchcraft or something. Okay. So all that Dr. Riggins and Dr. BOAFO, they've told us that it is possible that some aspect of it, there are people who may be at risk of having their mental illness
Triggered.
as a result, yeah, triggered or direct result of it. But doesn't mean everybody. But what is happening is generalized.
Right.
And number two, because it was illegal. So first, you are doing something illegal. Three, because it was illegal, and Dr. BOAFO, and I think, you know, Alinko, you can tell, those who were bold enough to use are those who are also bold enough to be to kind of push the envelope a little bit, you know, dress in the way that it's not the norm, how the good people dress. So there's a whole lot that is attached to it, you know, with baggy pants, all that.
Okay.
So I think the message, the take-home message, we're saying that just because someone is smoking doesn't mean that they're bad, doesn't mean that, you know, whatever the abnormal behavior, maybe something else with it. That's why we're discussing something else.
Okay. So their mental illness is not always associated with the usage of
it's
marijuana.
Not the cause. So it's not the cause. Maybe associated, maybe I wanted to relax, and I found that this helped me relax. So it is not necessarily the cause of it.
Yes.
So what it is avoiding, it's preventing people, it's preventing your loved one, your children from getting help, because you are just assuming, okay, it's just weed, and if you just stop. So consider that it may be something else.
Okay.
I think that's the larger message.
Why is it that there are a lot of substances that human beings, we use, alcohol, cigarette, tobacco, there are a lot of them, you know. Why is it that it seems like the weed or the herb, you know, has a lot of effect on your brains? Because from what you guys are saying, you know, most of the things that, from what you've listened to so far, the inference is that, well, some people use it because they want to relax, you know, it eases down pain and all of that. So what is in there that makes the mind, you know, relax? How, yeah, I want to know the correlation between mental illness and the herb itself.
Or let's say a specific portion. That's what you've been talking about, that the herb itself has thousands, like you said, right, of different
chemicals
that can act on. We also have thousands of chemicals. So it depends. If I take it, if I smoke it, okay, I may be the type that is going to help my anxiety, the part of the brain that relieves anxiety. Okay. Or I may use a certain type. I may just go by thinking I'm buying my regular herb, and I just use the type that is going to activate the part that get me high and get agitated. Science hasn't, come up. They haven't quite identified all the others.
Okay.
Maybe that will come another 10, 20 years.
Because
for now, we don't know.
Yeah, I want to know why we take all other substances and it's fine, but it seems as though once people get into a mental illness or a psychiatric issue, it's automatically we seem to be the number one thing that people would be looking at within the African community, and I want us to be able to help understand why we have that belief. And I think that's what I'm trying to say. Why we
within the African community,
yes,
we didn't have the terminology of, before I came here, in my time, people were not talking, oh, they're probably smoking or opiates or cocaine or heroin. All that wasn't, I didn't hear of that. This is all back, say 30 years ago.
Okay.
You didn't hear that. Okay. But now, if a young person in Ghana, for example, they say they're using drugs, the average person knows that using drugs may not just be marijuana. It can be cocaine. It can be any of those that you also talk about here. So we're talking about the traditional, that it's almost like sometimes we stands for everything, stands for every drug the person uses.
That's what I'm saying. So I want to get to know why Africans think that way, why we've come to adopt or accept that culture of looking at everybody, most people in dreadlocks or people that have psychiatric issues, as a result of their intake of weed or their usage of the herb. Why is that the number one go-to thing in the African community? And it's everywhere.
Well, when you don't have answers, I will say that.
I want to try to respond to this because he's a young man. He's lived in Africa. He's been to Confanoche. He understands, and he sees a social connection. He's experienced that, and also being a science person. Why do we have such a belief? Why do we uphold this correlation so much and think that it is the only thing that attributes or that causes mental illness within the African community? From your perspective, Dr. Bright.
Yeah. So I think apart from what Dr. KANKAM mentioned, that's the cultural stigma, or let's say from the culture. One thing I would like to throw more light on is when it comes to any plant at all, the chemicals in the plants, let me take the weed for example. The ability of the plant to produce THC or CBD depends on various factors. It could depend on the weather, okay, and then even the nutrients in the soil. Because if you look at the structure of THC and CBD, although they're in the same plant, they require different nutrients, different environmental factors to kind of produce these chemicals at various proportions. Okay. So my guess, or I'm going to speculate, could be that probably the weather in Africa, the environmental conditions, the nutrients and all kind of promotes production of higher THC in these plants.
Okay.
So probably that could be one reason. And then I think, quote unquote, people who are assumed to be mad, usually you kind of see them smoking. And the assumption is that it could even be cigarette, but the only conclusion is that they are kind of taking a weed. So I think one key thing I'll mention here is probably, I would kind of speculate that is probably based on the environmental factors and then the level of THC. So probably there was a strong correlation between marijuana smoking and some form of psychiatric illness, probably based on the THC level in the African hemp.
Again, for the benefit of somebody who don't understand what THC and CBD is, I would like you to break it down. Give us a...
Okay. So the hemp contains various chemicals. So the THC is a short form for tetrahydrocannabinol. And then the CBD is cannabidiol. So these are chemicals, the two most studied or known chemicals in the reed. And as mentioned, there are various chemicals which are not really known and not well kind of studied.
So the two most prominent or studied chemicals are THC and CBD. Now, both can be used for medicinal purposes.
No, the medicinal one is usually the one with high level of CBD. So whenever the drug companies are kind of designing the drugs, there will be approval of the drug if it has a near zero level of THC.
Okay.
When they find THC in it, it cannot pass because it's psychoactive.
Okay. Psychoactive. What is psychoactive?
It can cause excitation of the person, that's the brain. It could lead to anxiety or some form of psychiatric illness. So more of stimulation of the nervous system. That's basically psychoactive. Yeah.
Psychoactive is a stimulation of the nervous system.
Yes, exactly.
Which is found in which is THC.
Dependent, yes.
Okay, and THC is found in cannabis and herb. Okay, and so that is why. So because it can lead to these things, it is not necessarily encouraged or promoted to be used by people.
Yes, because looking at the CBD tends to calm you down. It tends to relax you a bit. That is one main reason why it's even used in anxiety and seizures. Because seizures, we have hyperexcitation. Similarly, anxiety, the person is a bit aggressive, or let's say kind of stimulated. Okay, so the CBD tends to really calm you down.
Okay.
While the THC tends to elevate you.
Okay. THC elevates you, and then CBD calms you down. And so there is the push for THC to be lowered, and then CBD more of based of your medical condition or medical advice. Wow. 7:33 p.m. CST. You're still listening to the Progressive Mind Show. Please share the feed as you on Facebook, Dr. Boke Solete. I hope you've shared it. Thank you for doing so. Dr. Portia, I hope you've shared it. Jerome, Rebecca, I hope you all shared it. Bonnie, please keep sharing the feed because we need to get this information out. Dr. Boke has sent so many comments. Let's try and read some of them. Actually, we'll try and go through all of them. We can now grow medical marijuana in Ghana. It's legal for medical purposes. Okay. Thank you. Yes. And so I think now, like Dr. KANKAM is saying, things are, we can now attribute, some mental illness to other forms of drugs compared to maybe 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, where, everything that happens to you mentally or is as a result of your intake of marijuana or the usage of marijuana. And so thank you, Dr. Boke, for your comments. Another one that came through says, the truth is cannabis was criminalized largely because one man felt it threatened a rigid, racially stratified social order that kept him and his associates at the very top. Okay. That is Dr. Boke's comment. He goes on to say, in the 1930s, Harry J. Slinger, head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, turned the battle against marijuana into an all-out war. Some believe that he was motivated less by safety concerns. The vast majority of scientists he surveyed claimed that the drug was not dangerous, and more by a desire to promote his newly created department. Whatever the impetus, as Slinger sought a federal ban on the drug. And to this end, he initiated a high-profile campaign that rallied heavily on racism. Does it continue? Okay, I think that's about it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great conversation so far. We would like to understand from Dr. KANKAM. Actually, I'm just getting a signal that we need to take a short break, and then when we come back, we will continue the conversation. In about 20 minutes, we'll be wrapping up this discussion this evening. It's been wonderful so far, and we will ask you to keep your comments and your questions coming in. The number to ring is 815-409-9123. Stay tuned. We shall be.
Pause a minute for today. Wash your hands clean and pray. Global epidemic day. Corona. People dying every day. Corona. EB virus. Mania. Funny serious. Corona. Yeah, virus. Echewa. You go lost. Wash your hand daily with running water and don't stop. Keep away from non-farm meetings and do something, bro. Pray for your enemy, pray for your family, pray for your country, yeah. Don't forget to keep clean with hand sanitizer. Pause a minute for today. Wash your hand clean and pray. Global epidemic day. Corona. People dying every day. Corona. EB virus. Mania. Funny serious. Corona. Yeah, virus. Echewa. We go lost. China, Japan, man down. Italy, UK, man down. United States locked down. What now? Pause a minute for today. Wash your hands clean and pray. Global epidemic day. Corona. People dying every day. Corona. EB virus. Mania. Funny serious. Corona. Yeah, virus. Echewa. We go lost. Pause a minute for today. Wash your hands clean and pray. Global epidemic day. Corona. People dying every day. Corona. EB virus. Mania. Funny serious. Corona. Yeah, virus. Echewa. We go lost.
Welcome back to the Progressive Mind Show. You are listening to these great people who are helping with the discussion of the international health this evening. Dr. KANKAM, Dr. Regan, and Dr. Bright have been very informative this evening, and Dr. Voke, Salete, and all the other comments that has come through. We really appreciate it. We have Dr. Portia, Jerome, Rebecca, and Drew, and all of you, Hassan, Matavu, who have all joined in and shared your thoughts on this subject. Thank you so much. In a few minutes, we would like to wrap up. But so the number of coronavirus cases keep rising in this country. The death toll is huge than ever. It keeps rising, and so I mean, somebody will ask, how does the herb come into this? It does not necessarily. But we have to. It's very important that we acknowledge the fact that we are in very, very trying times. The virus is still here. They're talking about the vaccine. We still haven't found a cure. So everybody is scrambling to find, how do we deal with this? And knowing that the Black community, we have a lot of underneath or health underlining health issues. It's very, very important that we start engaging, or we engage more into ways we can adapt into making sure that we're not falling prey to this virus. And so we may be the days to come, we may find out how even some component or the medicinal part of the herb can be helpful to us, in dealing with, the virus and even our immune system. Basically, not a cure, but boosting our immune system or strengthening our immune system, so that we can be safe during this time. We are praying that very soon this shall be over, but in the meantime, we have to definitely engage in ways. And so we would be learning about how the medicinal values of the herb can help boost our immune system. Dr. Regan alluded to that, but let's, if he wants to add something to in that regard, he can do that. Dr. Bright and Dr. Mama, if you want to maybe help us understand how this can help boost our immune system or strengthen our immune system, we can elaborate a little bit on that while we look into the stigma, again, the stigma that we've had as Africans to the international herb. And then, so I don't know if anyone wants to relate, talk about virus and the herb and how it can be and immune boosting, or how it can even help our immune system in terms of the herb?
I just will say, the more that it's studied, we keep hearing that it has several parts to it,
Okay.
And maybe in a couple of years, but say I, for one, what I always say, if I have a headache, before I go take something that I don't know about or science doesn't know all about, I will try the ones they have tried. I'll try the Tylenols, I'll try the Advils later on. So what is known is the CBD and what quantity, some of the intractable seizures in children. I'm sure it's not the first thing that they give. They give the ones that have been tried, but when it's not helping, then it goes for it. So we still have to wait for more knowledge about it.
Okay.
But we know that it can be of use.
Okay.
But we don't know all of it now.
Okay. We want to know how it can strengthen our immune system. Is there any, Dr. Riggin, I know you spoke on that already. Can Dr. Riggin hear us?
I think he's frozen.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Maybe we might try and get him back on. Okay. Dr. Bright, is there any relation when it comes to the herb, helping to strengthen our immune system?
Yeah. I think I kind of mentioned them earlier on.
Yes.
So
to reiterate that.
Yeah. So I mentioned that there are usually two broad receptors for the cannabinoids. So the CB2 usually is found in the peripheral system and is found in the spleen. You could find in the bone marrow, and these are known to be kind of stimulated by this CBD, and it's known to boost the immune system.
Okay.
And when it comes to boosting of the immune system, there are various components. So the CBD could do it. The other stuff that could do, like vitamin C, vitamin D, could all boost the immune system.
Okay.
So I think there are some medicinal just for immune boosting for the CBD. There are a couple of them around here. I think they kind of use them to boost the immune system. So,
the immune system. Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Riggin, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, good. I wanted us to see if there's a correlation between. I wanted to see if there are some chemicals in the herb that can help our immune system, especially in these hard times when the numbers are extremely high. The United States deaths in the states are over 11,000, going on to 12,000. And so this is very, very crucial. I don't know if you can help us establish that, if there is.
Well, basically, it goes back to what I said about the endocannabinoid system, and its main focus is to establish balance in the human body.
Okay.
I take the CBD oil to help boost my immune system. I do it every day. And one of the things that I do know is that, yeah, you have to do all the things you know to do. Take the vitamin D, the vitamin C, the zinc, wear a mask, socially distance, but still, if you include in that regimen, taking a dose of from a reputable source, CBD, there are a lot of places that sell it.
Okay.
But it's processed much differently, and you have to have what we call a quality product. This is going into my body.
Mm-hmm.
And you find a place that has the best quality product because it can help stimulate the endocannabinoid system and boost your immune system and help you, prevent you from, maybe being contracting the actual COVID-19 virus. So I take that very seriously, and I recommend it. I feel duty bound to share with whoever will listen to say, look, in a time where everybody is trying to figure out what to do, the best medical minds in the world are, you know, somewhat in disarray as to what exactly everybody can do, we have to do what we know to do. And one of the things is to boost your immune system, getting the right amount of sleep, okay? Staying hydrated. As I said, they're taking the CBD oil as basically the purified form of it. I mean, there's some that you can buy from the gas station. You know, there's some that you can, you know, get from anywhere, but you don't know what's in it. So you need to find out what's in it.
What would you recommend? Where
Pardon?
do you recommend people to get their CBD oil? If I mean, I know you are involved in a company that with it. So
I've vetted a lot of companies. The company I get mine from is called Healthy Place Botanicals.
Healthy
It's online. You're gonna go to healthyplacebotanicals.com. Okay, and you go online, and what you look for is a COA, a certificate of analysis, because you can. The main thing about CBD oil is how do you extract it from the plant? What process do you use? The best process is called supercritical CO2 extraction. Very expensive. You can, you know, go on YouTube now and see cheaper ways to do it, but it doesn't clear the pesticides, insecticides, the fungi, you know, the other contaminants on the plant, because it is a plant that's grown in the ground. And if your ground has a lot of contaminants, it's going to be on the plant too. So you want something that's going to separate in the purest form the CBD, which comes from the stalk and the seed, and the supercritical CO2 extraction process. Expensive, but it's worth it. And a lot of companies don't want to invest in that money to do that. So you find one that does, and that's what you use. And that's what I did, and that's what I use.
Okay. We have tried to discuss this topic of the international, the African stigma, and we are almost through at 7:48, 2 minutes to with 2 minutes to 7:50 here in the studios. My name is Alinko, and we shall be bringing this conversation to an end very soon. But Dr. Kankam and Dr. Bright, maybe help us understand, or maybe help us close us and help our African community to understand why we should not necessarily, or why we cannot necessarily attribute weed to mental illness within the African community. And I'll start with Dr. Kankam.
Okay, so one of the things is, first, mental illness itself is not understood. The whole world, including my colleagues, my two colleagues here.
Okay.
Being a psychiatrist, they probably look at me different. So it starts with awareness of what mental illness is, that mental illness is, or what even mental health is. Mental health is not about just feelings. The mental health is that aspect of our brain system that helps us make good decisions so that we can survive, not just, you know, physically, emotionally. So it's a decision-making system. And it is derived from, we've been talking about the brain and its chemicals. So it's helping us make decisions which may make us feel sad, angry, happy, anxious, and all these are normal emotions. And then our system reacts to it. Okay. And just like any system, sometimes it breaks down. Just like the heart, you know, the cardiovascular system can break down into many, many illnesses. So there isn't one mental illness.
Okay. All right. So we wanted to take this comment before we end our session this evening. It's from Dr. Avoke. He says, cannabidiol has been linked to helping heal broken bones, quickening the process. According to Bone Research Laboratory in Tel Aviv, it also helps strengthen the bone in the process of healing. This makes it tougher for the bone to break in the future. Anybody wants to respond to this?
Yeah. So in the bones, there are two major cells. So there's one cell called the osteoblast, which tends to lay bones, or it tends to form bones, and then later becomes osteocytes. And there's one called the osteoclast. So they tend to resorb bone and kind of destroy bone, especially when the bone gets damaged or becomes dead or necrotic. So what the CB2 receptors on the osteoclast does is, when you give a CBD and it acts on the CB2 receptor on the osteoclast, it tends to inhibit this osteoclast. So when the osteoclasts are inhibited, it tends to kind of minimize bone diseases such as osteoporosis, and then basically osteoporosis.
Okay.
So in effect, it tends to prevent fractures in bones, especially in the aged, like women who are postmenopausal, where they are liable to kind of bony fractures,
Right.
whilst it tends to enhance the osteocytic arm, which tends to kind of form more bones and prevent bone breakages. So actually, that is one area where most of us are kind of working on currently, and I think it makes the future quite bright for conditions such as osteoporosis. I mean, to be catered for.
In a nutshell, you will say that the herb has a lot of medicinal values for the human body if used and applied the right way. Am I correct in saying this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And as science get to learn more about it.
And as science gets to, learn more about it. We are going to be closing this evening, but I still want to be able to give my other two guests their last words. Well, one thing we have learned this evening is that within the African community, or within the as Black people, we are prone to mental health issues based of our genetics, based of our culture, based of our condition, and based of our history, and so many factors. And so, for all you know, a lot of the issues that you may have seen associated with a friend or a relative, when it comes to psychiatric when it comes to a lot of the psychiatric issues that we may have encountered or seen with our members and friends in the African community back in the days were not all attributed to witchcraft, some voodoo manipulation, or the usage of herb. Some people genuinely developed mental ill issues, and we probably didn't notice it and attributed automatically that to the herb. And so at least we have come to that awareness. And so let's keep learning on this. Let's keep expanding our knowledge on this. I know in Ghana right now, there's a usage of tramol and crack and all types of substances. And so we ought to be dealing with drug abuse and drug usage. But that stigma, the notion that weed is the problem, weed is the reason why almost mental issue, almost all psychiatric issues, weed is the main reason for almost all psychiatric issues in Africa and Ghana, where I come from, is absolutely not correct. And so I think we need to go on with this conversation, and also help our elderly understand that we need to identify mental health issues by looking at the symptoms, and even talking more to professionals, and engaging our communities in these types of discussions. On that note, I will let Dr. Murray Riggin. Next week, actually coming this Saturday, we're going to have a special edition on the Brazilian culture, breaking racial barriers in Brazil. All right, so it's going to be a special one this Saturday at 1 p.m. And then on Monday 1 p.m., we're going to have a special edition for Healthy Place. But Dr. Healthy Place and their products and what they intend doing in Africa and even here with their products, natural made products. Dr. Higgins, your last words regarding everything we've talked about so far. And again, with your organization, I think we lost him. We'll have Dr. Bright give us his last words. And then if we're able to get Dr. Bright, we'll bring him on. Sorry, Dr. Riggin, we'll bring him on.
Okay, so what I would want to conclude with is you should always know your limits, okay? And if you have, let's say, any comorbid condition, so I'd want to refer to people who have underlying hypertension, diabetes, or any other condition where you are taking other drugs concurrently, before you even take the recreational one, I would strongly advise you kind of consult your physician. Probably he could throw more light onto it as to whether you should go ahead or not because of the possible interactions of the recreational marijuana or just a marijuana with other drugs or other chemicals. So just know your limits and then just be safe.
But always consult your doctor, right?
Yeah. That is very important. Like just always need to consult.
All right, Dr. Regan, we have you now. Sorry about that glitch. I know. Yes, your last word. Yes, your last word as we bring the discussion to an end this evening. Your closing remarks.
Well, I think it's been said, mindset is the main issue that could be keeping us back from experiencing true healthiness while we're in this pandemic. And one thing we have to learn to do is get out of our comfort zone, listen to the science, read the studies, and as more and more doctors become aware of and can speak to the attributes of the CBD or the hemp, then more and more patients will also be aware of it. And therefore you can help change the mindset and the culture of people so that they can benefit from this natural growing plant that God has blessed us with. And that's my last statement.
Do you still work with Natural Health Place, or do you have any affiliations with it?
With who?
Natural Health Place.
Healthy Place Botanicals. Yes, I basically am the medical advisor.
Okay,
Medical Place Botanicals. And because I was introduced to the products about 3.5 years ago, and liked them so much, I kept ordering them. And so now I'm associated with them.
Okay, so that's Healthy Place Botanicals. That's the name of the company you're talking about. Okay, thank you so much. All right, thank you, Doctor. I know KANKAM, I gave you your last words. I mean, I had you speak on something earlier, but please close us properly as we bring this discussion to an end this evening.
Okay, so thank you for having us, and I think the message I want to send out is that everybody, there's nobody who is immune for mental illness and mental illnesses. And mental illnesses, you can't always see them. And it's not what you think. So if you see your loved ones or you yourself, there's changes in the way you're thinking, the way that you behaving, please, get help. Go start with your primary care physician. Just go talk about, don't suffer in silence, because we know that there's help. And also family members, especially our community. Don't just say they just drink, they just use weed. Get them help.
Right.
That's my message.
That's dealing with a stigma, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that would be the end of this evening's session on the Progressive Minds. We are glad that you came, you stayed, you contributed, and you supported to a great dialogue. Like I said, this Saturday, there's going to be a special 1 p.m. on the Progressive Minds show, a special edition. Watch out for that. We'll be sending out the information. And on Monday, we'll be here with Healthy Place Botanicals, who are going to be telling us about their products and the naturally made products, products made from natural substances and natural herbs and plants that helps us, and that will be beneficial to our families, our community. So it's already in Cote d'Ivoire. I hear their products are already in Cote d'Ivoire, and it's being received very well there. It's on its way to Nigeria. So let's see what they have for us this Monday at 1 p.m. But Dr. JEMIMA KANKAM, a psychiatrist, a long experience, 30 years service in psychiatry. Thank you so much for being on the show this evening. Dr. Murray RIGGINS, a veteran in the medical field. Thank you also so much for your participation this evening. Dr. Brights, thank you so much. I am glad that you came. You saw and you conquered, all of you. And I am hoping that we will keep in touch I'm hoping that we will keep in touch and work on more community projects in the days to come. Now, to the caller who called in earlier, thank you for your contribution. And for those who contributed on Facebook and on YouTube, I am glad you did. I love you so much. And I will be here, God willing, Saturday, Sunday, and of course the traditional Wednesday, 6 to 8 p.m. Remember to go on our website, theprogressivemindshow.com, and make a contribution to us. We need it. We need it. Theprogressivemindshow.com. If you have Cash App, you can send us your support to $SENAALINCO, $SENAALINCO on Cash App. The support goes a long way in helping what we're doing. Remember, to whom much is given, much is required. This has been your host, Sena, aka Alinko. We will be right here very soon. God bless. Good night, folks. Good night.